Hello, Bitcoin Basics listeners. Thank you for joining us. So what we have here is a series that I did for a local radio station in New Zealand called Fix the Money, Fix the World. Some of you might recognize that phrase. And what I've done is just gone through basic highlights of what's happening in the economy and how it actually affects the everyday person. So we've just uploaded those to the Bitcoin Basics podcast. Thank you, Gordon, for doing that. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Thank you.
The following podcast is a live recording of a radio show first broadcast by FreshFM with assistance from New Zealand On Air. FreshFM is a community access media station based in Te Tauihu, the top of the South Island, New Zealand.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fix the Money, Fix the World with your host, Faris Mali. Today is the 22nd of November, coming to you on FreshFM every Monday morning. Now, I need to make a correction for last week's episode. I said we were going to be playing a song called My Name, when that's not at all what was played. That was a request from a good man of mine, Sam, and Sam was the one who pointed out I made an error. So, sorry, Sam. I am later going to be playing one of my favorite bands because I'm going to be seeing them in concert Monday night. So that'll come up. Now, what's today's episode about? So last week's episode, we actually talked about oil, and I mentioned we'll be discussing EVs in further detail, the economic benefits and detriments of electronic vehicles. I'm actually not going to do that today. I'm going to save that for another time because there's something else that's been popping up in the news, mostly in Australia. And that is cyber hacks and cybersecurity. So how does this relate to economics? So economics and finance, we need to make a distinction. Finance is basically how you handle money. Economics can be plenty of different things, like what time you leave your home in the morning is an economic decision. Not a financial one, but an economic one. So this is why I enjoy economics, because it's a study of human interactions, human patterns, and the study of money. The field of economics is incredibly wide-ranging. For someone who has such a diverse and quirky experience background as myself, this is what drew me to economics, was just studying human nature. So why are we looking at cybersecurity today? Now, one thing you may not know is hacking, and we're actually going to identify what hacking is and the types of hacking. So hacking is costing consumers and companies about $500 billion every year. So I'm going to repeat that. Every year, companies and consumers, that's people, are losing $500 billion every year to hacking. The thing is, though, it actually could be much higher than that. And I'll explain why. Now, as of October 2022, at least 12 billion accounts have been hacked. And the reason I'm saying it actually could be higher than that is because we think that at least half of all data breaches are not disclosed by companies. So when a company gets hacked, so if two companies get hacked, it's more likely that one of them is actually not going to disclose that breach. They'll try and deal with it internally. But when I say a breach, it means someone has accessed that company's files and records. And if you're a customer of that company, which is some details we're going to go in, they're not going to let you know. We presume that 50% of that's happened. So all those statistics that I've given you, that is related to known breaches. So every second, 6 internet users will have their data leaked. So every second, 6 people will have their data leaked if you're an internet user. So it is a huge problem. It's one that's becoming even bigger. And what it's costing, I read this, they presume that it's costing global GDP 0.8%. So it's taking away 0.8% from global GDP. The cost of fighting it is about the same, 0.8%. The numbers were varying from 0.8 to 0.9, but the cost of fighting cybersecurity is what it's taking away from us. So when you think about it, it is stealing, and then you've got to hire people to fix what took place, private investigators and all this, and hire people to prevent it from happening again. So it is actually becoming quite a big problem. And the ramifications of having your data stolen is something we're going to talk about as well. Now, in Australia recently, this is in the last few weeks, there have been 2 large data breaches. And when I say large, I'll explain what they are. So Optus, which is Australia's second largest telecommunications provider after Telstra, they actually had a breach, and so did Medibank, which is Australia's largest medical insurer. Now, the Optus hack, I'm going to go into detail a bit later because it's quite a frightening one, but Medibank actually, that just happened. And Medibank has disclaimed that not only have their customers' details been breached, but they didn't even have any cybersecurity insurance. So Medibank said that the hackers gained access to all of their customers' data, which is just short of 4 million customers. So 4 million people who have been clients of Medibank have had their data breached. They didn't even have any security against that. Now, what's then happened is that these details have actually been sold online. So people can go and buy this information online that's been hacked. And I'll explain why. But first of all, the cost of the company is presumed to be about $30 million. And that's just what they have to pay out. Already more than $1 billion has been wiped out of their market share. So that's what they're worth as far as the share price of the company. One analyst warns that if you factor in lawsuits, fines, and rehauling their IT system, the cost of this breach could be as high as $150 million. So they were hacked. 4 million of their customers' details have been accessed to. Thousands have already been posted online. And the cost of the hack to the company themselves could be as high as $150 million. So that's Medibank. Now, the other one was Optus. Now, the scary thing about the Optus hack is that it was actually very simple. They gained access to a website that was unencrypted. It was an internal website, and it did not have any encryption. By encryption, I mean it didn't have a password to gain access to. The hacker downloaded 10 million customer details, and they demanded $1 million in Monero, which is an anonymous cryptocurrency. So the question you might be asking here is why Monero and not Bitcoin? Bitcoin is actually not private. Bitcoin addresses can be, what's the word I'm looking for? It can be tracked. So Bitcoin addresses can be tracked. You can actually find out where the money's going to. And this is why hackers have actually stopped using Bitcoin for quite some time. Monero is a private one. I think Zcash is another private cryptocurrency. These are the ones that they're likely to use when it comes to these kind of cyber attacks and ransom attacks. So with the Optus hack, over 10,000 personal details have been sold online already. Customers have already lost tens of thousands of dollars in scams. Now, how does this happen? So how does your data being hacked or being breached? So breach means a corporation, someone filtered in, someone got into their systems, got their data, and then that data is sold online. How does that affect you as a consumer? Because with Optus and Medibank, we're talking about millions of customers whose data, when I say data, here's what I'm talking about. Your date of birth, your address, your phone number, your email address, your driver's license number, and in some cases, your passport details. If a hacker has access to this stuff, they can open up a bank account. They can take out a credit card, max it out, and you're liable for it because it's in your name. So when a hack happens, what in this event of the Optus hack, what do you have to do? Well, you've actually got to get a new driver's license. You should cancel your passport. You should get a new email address, a new phone number. It is a lot of work and a lot of nuisance to recover from a hack. All right, I'm going to give my throat a rest. Now, the reason I'm going to play The Killers. This is my favorite band and has been for a very long time. And I am off to see The Killers on Monday night in Auckland. And Sam, if you are listening, I apologize. I played the wrong song last week, but I'm playing The Killers today. And if you do not like The Killers, Sam, we can no longer be friends. That was All These Things That I've Done by The Killers, probably my favorite song from my favorite band. And as I've already mentioned, I am seeing them Monday night in Auckland. And Brandon, anyone else from The Killers, if you guys are listening to this, you have to play that song. If you don't, I am going to storm the stage and sing it myself, which no one wants. If you are just joining us, this is Fix the Money, Fix the World, coming to you Monday mornings on FreshFM with your host, Faris Mali. And today we have been talking about hacking and cybersecurity. And hacking essentially is a growing problem, and it is one that is costing global GDP about $500 billion every year. and it affects 6 internet users every second. So what types of hacking are there? Now, there is a hack and then there's a phishing scam. So phishing scam is social engineering, and a hacking is something different. So hackers operate anonymously and covertly. They're the ones that you think of, in a basement behind a computer. Just what they're trying to do is gain access to a database or gain access to a website that they're not allowed to have access to. So they're trying to find a way of getting access to a bank, telecommunications company, basically anything that has someone's personal details. They do so by trying to find vulnerabilities in the system. That's what a hacker is. They don't actually engage with any person. They don't send out emails like the Nigerian prince email that's been going around for decades. The Nigerian prince email is what you would call a phishing scam. When I say phishing, that's PH phishing, not the good old weekly hobby that we all get up to in New Zealand. But no, a phishing scam is where you will receive an email where it's telling you to click on a link, or that someone, one that I've seen is someone is stuck overseas and they need you to send some money. They just need access to a little bit of money, or these are phishing scams, and they are actually getting more sophisticated. So what we've done to make hacking and phishing easier for these people is we're posting so much of our lives online. Now, as I said before, in the Optus and Medibank hacks, what did these guys get access to? Your date of birth, your address, your email address, all these things. Now, most of these people post this stuff online. On Facebook, you're actually telling people not only what your date of birth is, you're telling them what your address. Even if you don't have your address on Facebook, it's easy for them to find out, because all they've got to figure out is your full name, where you live, because you're posting photos, and then look you up in the white pages. And then you're posting when you are overseas or when you're going on holidays, letting the world know that, hey, your house is unoccupied. When you take a photo on your phone, if you do not change these settings on your phone and you upload a photo to Instagram or any other social media website, there is metadata in that picture. And that metadata tells everyone the device you took the photo on. Was it an Apple, an Android, what kind of phone it was, the time of day you look at, and the precise geographic location down to a 3 square meter mark. So it actually, when you upload a photo, if you haven't changed these details, it is telling everyone where you are. So, and you're thinking, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is this information can be used. So, for example, if you're posting photos that you go to a specific gym, they can send you an email that looks like it's coming from this gym to basically say, oh, your last payment was declined. Please click here. And you click on it because why not? It's from your gym. And next thing you know, you're led to another website where they then get your credit card details. And if you're listening, I'm sure that you or someone you know has actually been defrauded because someone gained access to their credit card details. So that's a nuisance when someone gains access to your credit card details, because you got to change your credit card. The good thing about it is that the bank, basically, they're very good at refunding you that money because they know these things happen. What's worse, though, is if someone gains access to your identity, because, as I mentioned before, they can apply for loans. They can get a new credit card in your name and you will not know anything about it. So that's the frightening thing, is when someone gains access to your identity. So with phishing scams, they have become so much more sophisticated because we are uploading so much more of our data online. Now, this is something to remember. And this is where people think, oh, it's in the cloud. Well, we think that information is being bounced around satellites or computers. It's not actually stored anywhere. It is. Because it's in the cloud, it still has to be stored somewhere. Everything you do online is stored on someone else's computer. This could, whether it's Apple, Microsoft, Google, Dropbox, anything you do, that is data and information they are storing. And they are vulnerable to hacks. So this is something we need to take a lot more seriously, in that whatever it is that you do, you actually need good practice. And a good analogy that I've heard is think of Tom and Jerry, the old cartoon. every week it was the same thing, a cat chasing a mouse. And this is how online security and privacy works. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the distinction between the two. What's the difference between information and security, or privacy and security? So think of it this way. You have a house, and let's say you want to secure that house. So in the industry, they call that OPSEC, operational security. So you want people to not get into your house, so you will build a gate with a really strong, a fence with a very sturdy gate and a sophisticated lock. They can't get into your property. But let's say the gate has bars they can see in, and you're in your house and it's night, you have the lights on and the blinds are up. So you have good OPSEC, operational security, which means no one can get in, but your privacy is terrible because they can just see everything that you're doing. Now, privacy is called InfoSec. So you need good OPSEC and InfoSec. So what you want online is the equivalent of a secure property and a private one as well. And just like you would do in a house, you would have your blinds down and your lights off. So what you're doing if you're using a phone, good security is not to download apps that you do not need. If there is something that you can do online, do it online. So if there are free apps out there, and I've said this before on the show, if something is free, then you are the product. So a lot of these apps that you download, they'll have what's called a Trojan horse. And basically you download it and they're doing something else behind the scenes and they can gain access to your app. Now, if you're using your phone for banking, if you have every contact on your phone and their date of birth, and you download some app that is vulnerable, that app potentially can access your banking details and everyone else of your contacts. Is it worth it for the sake of convenience? And there's this saying in information technology that there's a trade-off between security and convenience. If something is very convenient, then it's not very secure. If it's not, so think of it this way. If this is making your life that much easier, well, what is the security trade-off? So you downloading apps on your phone where you can access your banking is great. And then you downloading a free app that gives you a torch on your phone or a free game. Well, what's the trade-off there? That can potentially be vulnerable to your phone. So we live off of our phone. So what do? Well, we need to be aware of what's going on. There is talk currently in the United States of banning the app TikTok, because if anyone actually bothers to read the disclaimer and the terms and conditions that come with these things, TikTok is basically saying, oh, we're going to gain access to your phone. They can even turn your microphone on whenever they want. And as the insinuations are going at the moment is that everything that TikTok does is actually data that is being sent back to the Chinese government. Now, this is just stuff that I've read and opinions I've seen, so please don't quote me on this. I don't want to be found liable for anything here, but that is one of the concerns that I've heard people's voice about TikTok. And when I say people, one of them was actually a former CIA officer in another podcast I was listening to, which I'll link. So, first of all, what is security? Security is having a device that no one can get into. So if you're using a phone, for example, I run a VPN on my phone. It's called a virtual private network. And that masks my IP address and it masks my location. But at the same time, if I'm using that phone to post my movements, where I am and what I'm doing, well, there's no real point. So you need to be secure and private. And one of the things that really gets to me is I went somewhere recently, signed up for a new account somewhere, and they wanted my full name, my phone number, and date of birth. Now, if this was a government account or a bank, I understand they need that because that's one way of accessing your credit rating. But this was just a social place that I went to. Now, I'm not going to give them that because I don't trust their servers. That's information that they're storing there, and they could be vulnerable to a hack. So what do? Give them, you have a separate email address that doesn't have your name in it, and you give that to subscription. So if you're subscribing to a band or a newsletter, don't give them your proper email address and make sure it doesn't have your full name in it. Never give anyone who doesn't need it by law your actual date of birth. And never ever post your mobile number on a website. So there's actually, and these are just a few of the simple things that we can do. All right. This was another one if you came across. So again, if life is becoming convenient, what's the trade-off? So I read an article a few years ago about one of these automated vacuum cleaners in your home. These are the ones that basically go around your home and bump into walls and just, vacuum your house for you. What this one was doing, I'm not going to name the company because I don't recall which one it is and I don't want to get that wrong, is as it was going around your property, it was actually drawing a map. So when you look at these things, you think, it's just bumping into a wall. And I've seen the cheaper ones operate where it just bumps into a wall. But this one actually is, the more sophisticated ones will go around and draw a map of your property. And what it's doing is going around, and it's figure out, I'm in the dining room because there's a large rectangular object here and small objects around it. So it'll figure out that is your dining room table. Then it'll figure out where your couch is and your TV is. Now, this vacuum cleaning company was harvesting that data and then selling it to marketers who will then basically, you'll get an email because you've given your email with this vacuum cleaning company when you bought it. Next thing you know, they'll say, okay, we think that you could use a side table to go by your couch. Why? Because we know the layout of your property, the vacuum cleaner told us, and we know what products we think we can sell to you. So the floor plan of your home was actually being uploaded by this. And this isn't as scary as what our phone's doing. So if, 20 years ago, the government said, we want everyone to carry around a GPS system that tells us everywhere that you've been throughout the day. People would be in an uproar. Be like, no way, you're not allowed to do that. It's infringement of privacy. But we're doing that every day. With Alexa and Siri and all this, they know where we are all the time and what we're doing. And it's your right to let that happen, but where is that information being stored? So look, at this stage, if you listen this long, I actually want to give a pitch to a company that's sponsored by this show. And full disclaimer, this is a company I'm involved in myself called myprivacy.help, where this is what we help people do. We help you manage your data and your security and your privacy to minimize the risk of you getting hacked and ensuring that you actually have proper online practice. So please take these things seriously because, you've heard all the stats that I've given. And my throat's about to give out again. So I am going to play another song by The Killers. And let's have a look. They've got a new album that's actually just come out. So let's play something by their new album.
The podcast you just listened to was a live recording of a radio show, first broadcast on FreshFM, the top of the South's community access media station, with support from New Zealand On Air. The funding of Access Media makes these podcasts possible. To find similar programs by other community access media stations, go online to accessmedia.nz. If you or your group would like to know more about how you can have a program on our station, please contact us. Visit our website freshfm.net for our contact details.